Doma Sports Talk worldwide with some news from the world of boxing. So y'all know what time it is. You ain't in a rush to get concussed. Now let's keep it heavyweight. Talk about them heavyweights. We're talking about concussion. That's where the most concussion pops off. Heavyweight division. We'll talk first about them top three. Top three heavyweights got to be Anthony Joshua. He got 3 titles, right? The linear champ, and got the other WBC title would be Tyson Fury, coming off of beating Deontay Wilder. And then, of course, maybe Deontay Wilder at third, right? People would probably have right now, which is kind of confusing because, 2 of the fighters have a loss, right? And one has a loss against someone who was regarded as, the top heavyweight. But then again, losing to Andy Ruiz Jr. is not that bad either. But those 3. Well, Tyson Fury, the lineal champ, WBC champ, has come out and said basically, which we know already, but a lot of people in the world over doesn't really seem to get it. So it's good when Tyson Fury says it, because maybe the people that just won't listen to somebody that look like me or you know what I mean, they'll listen. Tyson Fury says the Deontay Wilder versus him trilogy match is a whole lot bigger than him versus Anthony Joshua when it comes to America. Anybody surprised about that? Like I told you before, Anthony Joshua's fight against Povetkin when the zone was coming in there, was trying to come to take over the American market. Only 17,000 people looked at it, right? Think about it, 17,000 people in all of America looked at that fight over the zone, which is showing you there's not that much of an interest with Anthony Joshua. Now they understand that he's a heavyweight champion, but him and Tyson Fury is not that huge. Tyson Fury is not that huge in America, like they said, because he had 3,500 people come to see him and Tom Schwartz, and about 4,000 come to see him versus the other dude after Tom Schwartz, Aldo Wallin, right? So there's not that huge. When Tyson Fury hooks up with Deontay Wilder, that's huge because America is split, and it's a white versus black thing, right? That's what's going on. That's why most of the people, it's like you would think, well, it's American, Deontay Wilder's America. No, they're going for Tyson Fury, no matter what. Right? Most of the people. That's why the narrative after the first fight was Tyson Fury really won. He was on the, on the ground twice in 2 separate rounds, and he wasn't the aggressor in the fight. Right? Being that big. Normally, the champion wins that fight. The whole thing is, when you read an article, what does the article always say? Well, many people think that Tyson Fury really won that fight. They forget that many people think that Deontay Wilder, the champion, should have had that fight. That's never written like that. Like, ever. Right? So, therefore, Tyson Fury, he's correct here. It's a bigger fight than that Anthony Joshua Tyson Fury fight. That's why it was just really puzzling for some people who want to act like it's still puzzling to see that the all-American media wanted the Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury fight. Right? And I've told you in other videos why that is. If Deontay Wilder becomes undisputed, that's the end of the shenanigans. And that's another reason. It's not only the one reason that we know is out there. But hey, that's what's going on. So Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury is not that big in America. It's big in other places, England, and maybe across the world. But this Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Tyson Fury fight is a big fight, especially because the undertones. The things that everyone knows, and some are just acting as if they don't really know about the gloves. And the cheating that could have went on, and all this stuff, they're in the internet about everything else. People don't turn off cabinets and rooms. People don't have glove history with their sparring partners and with other fights, McDermott or with Christian Hammer, and been doped, and just all kind of stuff, right? So, but some are playing like, well, Deontay Wilder's is nuts. And others are like, man, the dude was, could have did that with his glove. We seen that. We seen him cut off the camera. So there is a difference, right? And with everything goes in America. Some people see what happened on January 6th as that is the worst thing I've ever seen. Some are like, man, that ain't that bad. So it's a line drawn in the sand. And Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder is just an example of that. That's why, in my opinion, it should be East and West America. It should. All this staying together stuff should be just over. Just, okay, well, we're so far apart here. Let's just split up and build that big old wall you was talking about. Right through the middle of it, and people go on one side and the other. But that would solve all these damn problems. But anyway, so that's how it is. AJ and your boy Tyson Fury is not that big of a fight in America. Tyson Fury sees that himself. So he's preparing himself for Deontay Wilder before talking about anything else because he's dangerous enough. Now, so that would mean, they got to focus on that. Tyson Fury got to focus on Deontay Wilder before talking about Joshua. And Anthony Joshua got to focus on Alexander Usyk before worrying about Tyson Fury or anything else. So that brings me to AJ versus Usyk, right? It's a fight. I'm not going to pick the winner of that fight yet, but I can give you some reasons why I think each fighter can win or lose that fight. And we'll start with Anthony Joshua. I think Anthony Joshua can beat Alexander Usyk because of, simple reasons like his size, being about 6'6", 250 in that area all the time. His skill level. Anthony Joshua has a lot of skill. He has a lot of skill. We saw that with, him having to adjust in the Andy Ruiz Jr. fight, having to adjust, and saying, okay, the second fight, then I'm going to come out here and I'm just going to have to outpoint the dude. If I can't get him off his feet, let me outpoint him. And he was capable of doing so. The fact that, he's been hurt in several fights, right? Dillian White fight. Dillian White had one arm, but Dillian White is dangerous. And to come in there and when he got hurt, that lion comes out of him and he says, bring it on. This is Anthony Joshua, you would think, right? So he comes out and handles his business. He was hurt against Povetkin, handled that business, right? So, and the two straight left hands that he took Charles Martin out. It looks like, that was, easy. Charles Martin is a bum. No, that's not what that is. It's like Charles Martin wasn't ready for these two straight right hands that was coming, which is ridiculous, but he wasn't ready for them. And Anthony Joshua threw both of them in that fight. So Anthony Joshua's done these things. And like when he's in a barn burner, when he gets knocked on the ground, even Vladimir Klitschko, he's getting up and he's trying to take you out. The lion comes out of him. He's a nice guy, but the lion comes out of him, right? Another reason is his fight with Kubrat Pulev. Anthony Joshua beat Pulev a lot better than I thought. I thought Pulev was going to be a real problem for him. I knew Anthony Joshua had him in the strength department, or the one-punch knockout, or the heavier puncher. Let's put it like that. But I thought Kubrat Pulev was going to give him more of a problem than he did. He came through that, which is showing that, okay, if he's going to be tentative against Andy Ruiz Jr. to come back and to handle Pulev the way he did means he's informed mentally right now, and that's good. Another reason is because of the lack of power, concussive punching power from Alexander Usyk, right? Alexander Usyk is a technician. It's not one punch. He gets people out of there. Don't get it twisted, but not people as big as an Anthony Joshua. We've seen him beat punchers like Joe Joyce, in that double BS tournament, another kind of tournament with 5-round fights. I think it was 5 or 6 round fights, beating Joe Joyce. We've seen him take Tony Bellew out. We've seen him neutralize a puncher in the cruiserweight division in Marek Gassiev. So those, we see him do that, but he still has a lack of power, which I think at the end of the day, Joshua could possibly wear him down late and probably take him out of here. So those are the reasons I think Anthony Joshua could beat Alexander Usyk, and we'll save it up until the close to the fight. But I think I'll give Anthony Joshua the edge for those reasons. Now, when it comes to Alexander Usyk could possibly beat Anthony Joshua. The reason why I think there's a possibility here is because, he's not 6'6", he's about 6'3", he'll be coming in around about 220, maybe 215, 220, we don't know, in that area. But it's also fighters that are not that big, or tall at least, with Povetkin. Povetkin gave Joshua some trouble. Now, Povetkin is maybe a harder puncher than Usyk, but Usyk is more technical even than Povetkin, and I think is a better mover. So Povetkin gave Joshua problems. Carlos Takam gave Joshua a little bit of a problem, not much, but he's probably shorter than Alexander Usyk, although Takam is sturdier. Another one around Alexander Usyk's size, but heavier, and with the speed, is Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker was at least in the fight. Now, Parker's reputation is probably a harder puncher because he's a heavyweight than Alexander Usyk, but he did give Joshua issues. So because of those things, those are all pretty competitive fights with Povetkin, Takam, Parker, that I'm thinking, well, Alexander Usyk, seeing as though he's undefeated, could give him problems. Now, another reason, right, and it really fits together, is I give Alexander Usyk the mental advantage, right? And it goes into my other reason, and because he's boxing royalty. The reason why I give Usyk the mental advantage is because he's boxing royalty. Because up until now, Alexander Usyk has done things that others haven't. He's traveled to everyone's backyard, winning the WBSS tournament, undisputed, undefeated, and going to everyone's backyard to do so. Marco Huck, Berlin, Morris Bridas in Latvia, Marek Gassiev in Russia, and then winning the tournament, becoming undisputed, then saying, hey, I'm going to beat Tony Bellew after Tony Bellew had momentum of beating David Haye, right? And before that, beating Michael Hunter. All of these things are ridiculous, right? No one does that, and that will give him the mental advantage, which leads me to believe that no matter what's in front of him, he's going to figure out a way. We know that he's not that tall or big or not a heavyweight, but he figures out a way to win in every circumstance. We know that other fighters will not. Anthony Joshua, they're fighting again in England. Anthony Joshua was left once to go to America and got beat up, and then he went over to Saudi Arabia for the rematch, right? He stays in England. The Olympics were in England. All his fights are in England, and the fight against Usyk's in England, right? So it's a comfort zone thing for Joshua. This doesn't exist for Alexander Usyk, and he's probably an anomaly. No one else in boxing is like that. Well, they won't give a damn where we at. We go into your backyard and handle that. That's why I say Usyk is a problem, because of the mental advantage he's going to have. This fight, is going to be very competitive. It's going to be more than people think. I know they think that Usyk is smaller, but Usyk finds a way. You know what I'm saying? Like life. Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. Life finds a way. Usyk seems to find a way. So let's see what happens going forward. That's it. Those are the reasons I think Usyk will give him problems. I gave you the reason why Anthony Joshua should probably win the fight. And back up to the top of the whole thing is, Tyson Fury thinks, and I think as well, that Deontay Wilder versus himself in the trilogy is way bigger in America than Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. I think we all can agree on that. Doma Sports Talk Worldwide. And I'm up out of here, y'all.